Manager.
So let's get started. Okay, so here's our agenda for today. We're going to tell you a little bit about DSDR, some of the data we have available, how to deposit data. We're always eager to have you share your data with us so we can share it with other people. How to find data. We've constantly here at ICPSR and DSDR looking to ways to improve our data exploration tools. We'll be showing you that. And about restricted use data, which is a growing field where data is becoming more rich. And then we'll be answering some of your questions. So DSDR is a data repository, data archive that's funded by NICHD to make data available for secondary analysis. We're located here at the University of Michigan as part of the ICPSR, and we leverage a lot of the services that ICPSR provides to make DSDR run smoothly. So we have a fourfold mission at DSDR, and it's more than just providing data. Obviously, we disseminate data and make it available for secondary analysis, but a key part of our mission is to facilitate analysis. A lot of what DSDR does is to promote data, give people tools to help them analyze things by doing with data guides and being available for answering user questions. We also archive studies, and by archive, we mean the ability to discover data, find other data of different types. And a lesser known mission, but very important, is that we preserve data for future researchers. That's a key mission of what we're doing. So here are some of the services that DSDR offers for our users. We provide access to public use and restricted use data. We provide code books, as I said, data discovery tools. Online analysis is becoming a much larger thing. We keep improving our online analysis capability. Data guides to help researchers get over humps with data. And a first-rate bibliography. We believe research builds on research, and that knowing what other people have done with data is vital. So our bibliography is first-rate, and we have expert librarians who work on that. So let's talk about some of the types of data that we have available. Our primary mission, like that of NICHD, is maternal and child health. So our primary focus is data that has some relationship to maternal and child health. But we also have data on children and youth, which is tangential to maternal and child health. We have data on fertility, mortality, some of the traditional demography topics, family and household structure, SES, migration, and biomarkers and genomics. In addition, we have data of a variety of types, not just single-shot surveys. We have some longitudinal data and cross-sectional designs. We have some repeated cross-sections. We have national, international, and small area geography. We have, of course, public use and restricted use data. We try to make the data as current as possible. Current data is a mandate right now for a lot of NIH funding. So we try to make our data as current as possible, get it out as quickly as possible. And we constantly have upcoming releases. We're constantly working with data providers to make data available to people. So if we look at some of our top downloaded studies, our top downloaded studies is not surprising that the AdHealth, the National Longitudinal Study of Adolescents to Male Health, AdHealth, out of the Carolina Population Center, is a top study. We make the public use data available, one of the most used studies. We also get a lot of use from people interested in data from India and China as well, where we have some niches with some data that have been collected for those other countries. In particular for South Asia, India, our collection is growing for doing it. So we encourage you to come visit our website and just do some exploring, and you'd be surprised what you can find for some international data. Our most cited data, and of course, as I said, our mission is not just downloads, but to get people to be productive with data. Again, Ad Health tops the list of the most cited survey. But we also have other surveys that are around. The National Survey of Families and Households, a perennial, gets a lot of citations as well. And SECYD also has enormous amounts of studies. This gives you an example of what's being done on it. And again, the idea that research builds on research.
Okay, so why deposit data with DSDR and ICPSR? Because DSDR provides depositors with an opportunity to securely share and preserve the research data while making it broadly accessible for other researchers to perform secondary analysis. Our data curation process adds value to the deposited files. For example, we work with the depositor to ensure that data files have the appropriate value and variable labels that allow other researchers to use the data effectively. We also offer both public and restricted use dissemination mechanisms. In fact, every deposit that we receive is reviewed for disclosure risk to ensure that the contents are appropriately protected. Depositing data with us also meets funding requirements for data sharing. After a deposited study is released, our bibliographic staff began tracking data-related citations. We also publicize the data in announcements, newsletters, and at conferences. And we also make data usage statistics available right on the study homepage, which benefits our depositors by letting them know how often their data are being used, as well as users coming to the site looking to see how widely used the data are. DSDR relies on the ICPSR Deposit Manager for accepting and managing deposits. The Deposit Manager is accessible from the Deposit Data option in the main navigation at the top of DSDR's website. It provides a customizable workspace where the depositor can work with other members of the research team to prepare metadata and other portions of the deposit for submission. So I'd like to take a little bit closer look at some of the features in the Deposit Manager. The top red circle you see shows right underneath the project title there, which happens to be DSDR Test Project, shows the different options a depositor has for adding files to the project space. The More menu gives options to delete, download, or copy the project. You can create a folder and put your data files in there, or just directly upload files or import from a zip file. The area below, where the project description, scope of project, methodology, and related publications are, gives depositors an area to tell us about their deposit. Within the project description space, there is a summary and principal investigator fields that are required, but many of the other fields are optional. However, we certainly encourage depositors to utilize those because the more information we have, the more we can improve the metadata that we release and tell people about the data. Over on the right, you see the Submit to ICPSR button, which is where you start the process of giving us access to your data, and we start then looking at the data for curation. You can also share your project with other people. For instance, if you have a big research team, everybody can be looking at the metadata and contributing to the deposit. You can also change ownership, for example, one member of the project team to another. And if you need help, there's a link right above that to get a guided tour of the Deposit Manager system. Finally, on this page, if you look to the left, there underneath the workspace heading, you see a list of several different projects. Those are both projects that I have created and also that have been shared with me. And the nice thing about this is it allows you to move back and forth easily between projects and see status updates or, add more files or whatnot, whatever you need to do, it's easily at your fingertips. So there are multiple ways to find data on the DSDR website. You can use the main search in the upper right corner to search for data. There are also several options available under the Find Data drop-down menu in the main navigation. Here you can search DSDR's study holdings, variables, and publications. There's also links to learn about the studies that are available for online analysis and our restricted use access studies. Selecting the search holdings option from this drop-down menu is the same search as what you see in the upper right-hand corner. However, it gives you options to filter your search results right from the start by subject, geography, whether the study is NICHD funded, as well as many other options. Each study homepage also provides an option to search for variables within studies and publications related to the data. So I'm going to spend the next few minutes giving you a little bit more information about these search options. First, let's talk about the study search. Again, you can access this from the search box in the main navigation or the search holdings option in the Find Data drop-down menu. Once you actually do the search, here we have a search results for fertility. This is your search results screen. In the middle of the page, you can see where we have the black circles, you can see options to sort. Here you can sort your results by title, when the study was released or last updated, time period, and most cited in the ICPSR bibliography. You can also switch between tabs to see what variables relate to fertility as well as what publications relate to that search term. On the left, you have many different options to filter your search results. The variable search utilizes the ICPSR Social Science Variables Database, or SSVD as we call it, which includes variable level documentation for approximately 2 million variables. The variable search engine looks at the question text, variable, and value labels for most studies in the DSDR archive. All of our public use studies are currently searchable, and many of our restricted use studies. We are also working to make those restricted use studies searchable in the variable search. Your results are returned in a very similar manner to the study level search with options for sorting and filtering your results. And each result shows the associated label and question text when it's available, and also tells you the variable type and data set where the variable is located. If you click on the variable name, you get a display like you see on the right-hand side of your screen where you have even more detailed information about the variable. Another option that you have from the variable search results screen is to select variables for comparison. You can select individual variables by checking the box next to the search result or use the drop-down to select all variables in your search results. Clearly, you probably only want to do that option if you have a smaller number of variables returned in the results. But once you click on the compare button, you get a screen similar to what you see on the right, where you have a comparison of the variable that shows the label, question text, responses, time period, universe, and also provides a link to the study of origin. The publication search is based on ICPSR's bibliography of data-related literature, which John mentioned earlier. It's a database of thousands of citations of journal articles, books, book chapters, government reports, dissertations, presentations, and much more. The publication search results allows you to sort and filter just like the previous searches we looked at. And the results are also linked to the study or series it relates to. Another nice feature is that you can export your results. Finally, from the study homepage, you can search within a study for variables and related publications directly related to that study. Standard documentation that we provide includes the study description and a suggested data citation, as well as the option to view and download codebook and frequencies. Studies often have other survey instruments or other data collection measures available as well. And anything downloadable related to the documentation can be accessed on the Data and Documentation tab on the study homepage. Depending on the study, These files might be provided at the study and/or dataset level. We also produce and provide user guides for some studies, and data guides, as John mentioned earlier, are a newer development for us, which organizes key resources in one place to help users facilitate the use of the study. Data guides can include information regarding sampling, rates, merging files, in addition to any other useful resource. We often link back to project sites and other resources that the actual PI has developed. Currently, we have data guides available for Ad Health and the India Human Development Survey series. Downloading. Our public use data can be downloaded from the study homepage in a variety of formats, as you can see inside of that red circle. Essentially, what you do is you log into the website and agree to the terms of use, and then you are able to download the files that you're interested in, again, for all public use studies. Next, we'd like to highlight 3 tools for exploring data on the DSDR website: the bibliography, variable crosswalks, and online analysis. While I covered the bibliography earlier as a search option, I'd like to talk a little bit about it as a data exploration tool. It's a helpful resource in seeing what research has already been done on a topic. This can be especially helpful to students and others who are new to using secondary data for analysis. It can also be used to avoid duplication of analyses that have already been performed, as well as intentionally replicate data analyses. Some data collections, like the Relationship Dynamics in Social Life, or RDSL study, have variable crosswalks available. These display the availability of a variable across data files in the data collection. In the case of the RDSL shown here, the variable crosswalk can help users identify whether they can use the public use version of the data or if they need to apply for the restricted or highly restricted versions. DSDR has crosswalks available for a select number of studies, and we develop them as needed. Online analysis can be useful for exploring data prior to download, reviewing frequencies or summary statistics for missing data, creating subsets of cases for download, and creating tables and charts for reports. Many studies in DSDR are available for online analysis, and when online analysis is available for a data set, you will see an Analyze Online button next to the Download drop-down menu on the study homepage. Currently, ICPSR provides 3 options for online analysis that are shown here, and we're going to take a little bit closer look at these. First is the Full Analysis Capabilities option, which is powered by SDA, or Survey Documentation and Analysis. And this allows for a range of analyses, including cross-tabulation, comparison of means, correlation, multiple regression, and logit and probit regression. There are also options to recode and compute new variables and download a customized subset. The Frequencies and Crosstabs Legacy option is essentially a streamlined version of the Full Analysis Capabilities option. But it's just restricted to the Frequencies and Crosstabs feature. That one is also powered by SDA. Last week, we're excited that ICPSR released a beta version of StatSnap, which is a new online exploration and analysis tool. The beta version is limited to a number of studies and the Frequencies and Crosstabs programs. However, ICPSR plans to expand this to more studies and also offer additional analysis options in future developments. We definitely hope you'll come check out StatSnap, and if you have any feedback to share with us, we are grateful for that as well.
Okay, thank you, Sarah, for giving us a tour of DSDR and depositing data and exploring data. I'm now going to turn to applying for restricted use data. Restricted use data is one of the growing areas for us because data are the re-identification risk with the richness of data, sensitivity of data, and data on vulnerable populations is very useful for research. And so we're always interested in ways of trying to make these data available for people. But just in general for applying for data, the applicants must be PI eligible at their institutions. Graduate students must have a faculty sponsor. This is very important in terms of executing our agreement. We want to make data available to graduate students, but they do have to have a faculty sponsor. But applicants submit via our online application system a description of the proposed research, an approved security plan, IRB approval, institutional approval by signing the data use agreement with the receiving, and confidentiality pledges for anyone with access to the restricted use data. And the reason for the confidentiality pledges is we want to make sure that people understand that these data are confidential and that there's no misunderstanding. Now, there's some restricted use data that do require a current grant, but they are exceptions, but it is possible you could apply for data that do require a current grant. So how do you initialize the application process for doing things? Well, if you go to a study page and it says there's a restricted use rendition of, a restricted use rendition of the data, there's a tab and you can click on it. You can see it circled in black. And then what it does is it brings up how to apply for the data, and then there are links to our online application system. So DSDR and ICPSR has three ways of providing access for restricted use data. And the three are, to begin with, that the researcher receives the data via an encrypted secure download from ICPSR. That's kind of the traditional way people always used to get data. But one of our growing areas has been that the researchers come to the data electronically and use our virtual data enclave. And the third way is that researchers have to come in person to Ann Arbor and use the data in ICPSR's physical enclave. Now, typically, each of these is more secure, with the physical enclave being the most restrictive, and data match this. Data that had required the most protections have to go in the physical enclave, and so on. So let's talk about each of these quickly. The researcher receives the data via an encrypted secure download from ICPSR. So the data are encrypted with a unique key and a unique download for each researcher that expires after a specified period of time, this very short period of time. It requires an approved security plan. The typical plan is a non-networked computer. We're always concerned about information and data leaking out of the computer, not just people attacking it to come in. Researchers must review their own output for disclosure risk prior to publishing results. This is very important because in other security plans, third-party people have to review. But researchers are always responsible for following the rules. Researchers must destroy any copies of the data at the completion of the project. Our second thing is our VDE, which we're very proud of. And the nice thing about it is that the data remain in the ICPSR file servers and are accessed via encrypted communication, again, by approved researchers who have applied for the data. One of the things that's nice about the VDE is it can facilitate collaboration by allowing project team members from different universities, different organizations to work together. It also can work for people in different locations on campus, which is nice. The output, however, is reviewed for disclosure risk by DSDR staff. Notice the key difference there with when you have the data that the project staff are responsible for the review. In the case of things in the VDE, DSDR staff review to make sure there's not anything there. Access is terminated at the completion of the project, so there's no data that ever leaves the ICPSR system. The only thing that ever leaves is summary results that have been reviewed and are non-disclosive. The last thing we have is the physical enclave, And the physical enclave is for data that are highly restrictive and highly sensitive, often having personal identifiers or that are just of a sensitive nature that we do not want to let them out of the building. They remain at ICPSR and are accessed in our facility here in the Perry building in Ann Arbor. Obviously, we don't have that much data in the physical enclave, but we do make some things available there, and it does require a trip to Ann Arbor. So here's some future enhancements we're planning for DSDR. We're constantly coming up with new additional data guides, making variable crosswalks so people can make comparisons. We're continuing development of StatSnap, adding new features to it. Summary tables for restricted use data. The idea there is that you could be able to get summary tables without actually having to apply for the restricted use data, but the summary tables would have cell sizes that prevented any problems. New ways to deposit, where people who can't deposit their data to us can give us the metadata so we can make their data available, discoverable through the metadata, and then point them to the site where the data are available. Mirrors, where data are being made available at, say, another university, but they want to make it more widely available. That's what we can have here at DSDR. So that if you have your data available at your university, but you want to make it more widely available, we'll be glad to mirror your data so that people will get greater exposure. Interoperability with other repositories. As the years have gone by, there are more repositories available. We are aware of them. You all are probably aware of Dataverse and some of the other repositories. We want to be interoperable with them so that we can exchange information. They are both competitors and colleagues. So to connect with DSDR, we have various ways. Of course, we have a website, which you all saw as dsdr.icpsr.umich.edu. We have news, which you can subscribe to. We have a Twitter, we have Facebook, and of course our email, which is dsdr@icpsr.umich.edu. And we have a user support phone line, which we are welcome to hear from you, and we'll answer as soon as we can.
One thing I'd like to add is that we will have a new edition of DSDR's news coming out next week. So if you're interested in receiving that, it's a great time to go to the website and sign up for the newsletter, and then you'll get the next edition.
So we welcome your questions. Thanks. Okay, the first question is, what's the difference between restricted and highly restricted? Mostly the difference is going to be in terms of the mechanism to which access is provided. Highly restricted might require more security, such as the VDE or physical enclave. Furthermore, highly restricted data may require some different application requirements. The key difference is whether it requires a grant or not. Highly restricted data may require a grant, although that's not a correlation there, but that's generally a requirement that moves from restricted to highly restricted.
So we have another question about, is there a cost associated with depositing or accessing the data? DSDR is a federally funded project, and therefore there are no costs. We require no cost to deposit or access the data.
That's correct.
Yep, the restricted use data, clearly there are access requirements, but one of those is not cost.
Correct. And one of our goals is to eliminate barriers to data, so we're as much as possible trying to facilitate access.
Another question is the percentage of data that, restricted use data that are available for secured download versus the VDE versus physical data enclave. We currently have a very few number of studies that are in the physical data enclave, fewer than 5. And currently, all of our studies that are restricted use are available for both secure download and the VDE. We currently have 1 study in curation right now that will be only available through the VDE, but aside from that, everything else, I'm going to take that back. We have 1 study that is only secure download and not in the VDE, but primarily everything for DSDR because, again, of the federally funded and wanting to reduce barriers to access are available both for secure download and the VDE.
Let's go down. No, there will not be any charge. The user asks, will there be any charge for mirroring unrestricted data? The answer is no. Is there any none? Most of our data is, by the way, someone's asking, most of our data is public use. Restricted use data is a minority of the data, a smaller amount of the data.
Application, we generally review it within, I would say our average is 48 hours. It's relatively quick on our end. As far as the time from that point to actually gaining access, depends on how complete the application is. It's pretty typical for the application to go back and forth once or twice with components that need to be revised before the data, access to the data are actually granted. So, it all depends on how responsive the PI and the institute is to the revisions that need to be made. It can definitely happen in a week's time, but again, it all depends on the turnaround time and the responsiveness to the changes that are requested.
Yes, and so there's a question that says, if an institution does not have a data center on campus, is there any help that we can provide regarding analyzing data? Yes, ICPSR does provide that help. That help is typically geared towards member institutions of ICPSR, which is funded by a consortium, whereas DSDR is funded by the federal government. For all our data sets, we try to make information available for help with analysis, but that's one of the reasons why we have our online analysis tools available.
Will you get a copy of the webinar? Yes. A copy or a link for the webinar will be sent out, I believe, within the next 24 hours. And we invite you to share that. We definitely would appreciate that. And we welcome any follow-up questions as well if you think of something later on. I did want to say, someone had a question about the summer program, and we suggest visiting icpsr.umich.edu and clicking on summer program at the top for more information, or you can email sum, S-U-M, and then P-R-O-G at icpsr.umich.edu for more information. Let's see, is there a listing of studies which are available in StatSnap? I believe on you have to forgive me here because this is new. I believe on the StatSnap, there's a drop-down menu on the ICPSR site that provides a link to all of the studies. Because this is just in beta, I'm not as familiar with that, how to get to study that way. I'm more familiar with searching for the data of interest and seeing whether or not there's a link from the study homepage like we demonstrated here. There will definitely be more developments as we move forward with pages for accessing data. I can tell you that on the DSDR site, we have an online analysis page and that Find Data dropdown. And if you were to go on there and click the link to view all studies that are available for online analysis, that would give you a start to seeing the studies that are available in SnapStat, because it's still going to be a segment of all of the online analysis studies. But it will at least get you started if you're looking for a list. So that's a great question about how can people who have not used online analysis learn how to do it. ICPSR has developed several online tutorials, and you can access those from the ICPSR site under their help page, or we also have links on the DSDR site to many of ICPSR's online tutorials and YouTube videos. If you go to our help page, there's a video section there too. And of course, if you need more detailed instructions on how to get to those, if you email us at the link that was provided in this presentation, then I'm happy to get you more detailed instructions on how to access those.
What are the requirements to deposit data, and how do we get approval for the data? So for depositing, the requirements are reasonably simple, and I'll give them to you. Is that we need a data in a code book, and the agreement that we can contact you, because what we do is when the data come in, we do a review to see whether or not there's data and documentation that we could make available to other people. Without documentation, data are not useful. But the other thing that's very important that we request when you deposit data is that you agree to be available, that we can ask questions of you while we're making the data available. But there's no charge. Our mission is to make the data available. Now, priority in DSDR, since we're funded by NICHD, is data funded by NICHD in DSDR. ICPSR accepts data. But our basic rule is that NICHD data gets priority, then NIH data, then NSF data, then private foundation data. That's just a question of being able to allocate resources. It's not a comment on research, it's about resources.
I think we've gotten to all of the questions, and I appreciate those. Definitely some good questions.
Yes, thank you. And we appreciate it because it helps us improve our services as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for joining us. And again, if you have any questions after we end here today, please send us an email, or you're also welcome to call us, and we'll definitely help you out in any way you need.
Right. And last thing before we just end, I can't emphasize enough, please come visit the DSDR website and the ICPSR website. Our site is designed for you to come and look around and explore. We like it when people visit us. So come by, say hello, look around. Thanks again.